Union Crisis Media Center, Mr. Valery, the deputy head of the presidential administration. Good afternoon. Today, I would like to thank you for so quickly agreeing to be present at this briefing. I believe it would be interesting to sum up and to give the assessment of the working visit of the President of Ukraine to Minsk to the Republic of Belarus. And in the next part, I will talk about our future plans, about the implementation of what was planned in Minsk, and about the planned visits of the President, and about the further steps of the presidential line. Talking about Minsk, I would like to remind you such format of the meeting that was held, and that is the first serious result, because that meeting was being prepared for 2 weeks. That wasn't a simple decision, and the unique format of involving European side into 3 representatives, the High Commissioner on Foreign Policy, Catherine Ashton, and the Deputy Head of European Commission, Commissioner Oettinger, and Euro Commissioner de Gucht. That unique because they arrived to Minsk, and that was the opportunity to demonstrate that Belarus geographically is also located in Europe, and maybe the future of Belarus is also European. But the main thing is that allowed us to discuss all the issues which were of concern in this triangular Eurasian 3, Ukraine and Russia. There were 3 blocks of issues, and that was the main one, and the President of Ukraine emphasized that, and was emphasizing at all the bilateral meetings at the plenary session. That was the peaceful plan of settlement of the situation in Donbass. The main result now is the vision of the President of Ukraine. The logic of the peaceful plan will become the basis for developing the roadmap, and that is the move towards more detailed discussions of the issues that the parties analyze, and Ukraine is ready to very serious specific dialogue and specific actions. We need to move to peace quickly and carefully. I will put it carefully. That's not the breakthrough that we hope for. We were quite realistic approaching to that, but talking about what was happening in Minsk openly and behind the closed door, I can carefully say that that is moved to the roadmap, which is the subject of consultations in different formats. Another important issue for us is what the President said, the issue of settlement of the situation, stopping supplying the military equipment, the machineries, looking for the ways of coming out of the conflict. It's not the issue for Ukraine only, for Europe as well. These are challenges for the European Union and for the world, and we all together looking for the way out of that situation. Even the format emphasizes the solidarity of Europe with us. In the day started with the meeting with Catherine Ashton, and it finished with the meeting and the joint briefing with the representatives of European Union. I would like to thank them for that, because that is a very important element of our today's dialogue. We will coordinate positions with European Union, especially what concerns moving to ratification and implementation of the association Ukraine. The President of Ukraine emphasized it clearly in the direct contact with the partners that the association agreement will be submitted for ratification in September this year, not later. And now we can make some steps. There are the issues of trade, some issues which are of concern for European Union and Russia. For that, there's the mechanism of consultations, and the parties confirmed that they are ready to have these consultations as soon as possible, and that is on issues of the relations between European Union and Ukraine, the gas issues. All the mechanisms have received new impulse, political will from different sides, and now this work is to be done quite quickly. And I believe by the middle of September, all the consultations will finish. On the 12th of September, there will be a ministerial summit on trade, and the implementation of the zone of free trade in Brussels, and that's the time frame that we see. Another element is what is probably that the mass media did not pay attention to. These are bilateral meetings of the President of Ukraine, the President of Belarus, with the President of Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev, and at these meetings there were very specific discussions, not only about the key topic, but about bilateral relations, and the parties exchanged not just the understanding of the situation, but specific proposals of bilateral cooperation. Obviously, that the meeting in Minsk, besides the positive result, I believe that is the positive result. We are quite careful with that, but it has to be confirmed by further diplomatic actions and negotiations in the next couple of weeks, during which we have to address many issues. For that, the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, is ready, like us today, every day. I will disclose one of his quotations. He says 25 hours a day he's ready to communicate to anyone who can help in transition from war to peace. And it's obvious that, first of all, these are our European partners. Today, after Minsk, there were some telephone conversations of the President of Ukraine with the leaders of European countries, the heads of European Commission, of Council of Europe, Chancellor of Germany, Merkel. The agenda for today was this telephone calls, which add up to the meetings. Then for the next period, there will be discussion on coordination of actions on the implementation of the roadmap. I call it a roadmap, even though it's being developed. There is certain basis, and we can talk about some directions. Some of them are closing the border, returning to the situation when the border is controlled, the immediate liberation of the hostages and detained. It's the issue on the border guards and the staffs, and looking for the negotiations in Donbass. And also all the partners in Europe and Minsk confirmed that early elections are the positive step which will help to form in the Verkhovna Rada the representation of the regions, Donbass in particular. On the 30th of August, there will be the meeting in Brussels. We have a powerful program. We have already planned more than 10 bilateral meetings with the heads of European Union, with the heads of states of European Union. You know, on the 30th, there will be the meeting of the Council of Europe. There's an invitation for the President to participate in the Forum of European People's Party. And the program is being drafted, but now I can tell you that it will be very busy with all the key leaders of European Union and European countries. There will be the meetings held. Also, we may have additional meetings on the 4th of September, 12th, at the NATO summit, to have additional meeting with the partners who help Ukraine, who support the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Besides, the subject for discussions is economic assistance, financial assistance, in not very easy conditions with all the challenges, and in the nearest future you will see via the decision of the IMF and the donors, you will see that there is a support of Ukraine in this direction. Besides, the president in his plans has the visit to Ankara, to Turkey, at the invitation of the President Erdogan. The visit, which could be ceremonial, that's inauguration of the President Erdogan, but it turns into a visit of the president with serious objectives, with serious goals to meet with the leaders of the states in the context of implementation of the interests of Ukraine and energy sector. And now I can say that we have hopes that we'll have meetings with good results between the President of Ukraine and the President of Uzbekistan. We will continue the dialogue with the President of Kazakhstan, and there are some other bilateral meetings which will allow us to discuss the issues of bilateral cooperation and the situation in the region in general. The inauguration format does not provide for meetings with even the president of Turkey, but I do not exclude that there might be such a meeting with quite a specific discussion of some issues. The presidential delegation will have the representative of the president on Crimean Tatars, Mustafa Dzhemilev, and that's quite symbolic. I would like to remind you that earlier, before the inauguration, the president of Ukraine, together with Mustafa Dzhemilev, went to Turkey at the invitation, and the issue of Crimea, of Crimean Tatars, the issue of Turkish-Ukrainian relations is what is in the focus of attention of the president of Ukraine. So we can see that in the nearest future there will be a lot of intensive diplomatic work carried, and there were statements that the war could be stopped only by force, by military actions. The latest period shows that without parallel diplomatic work, active work involving international community, this will hardly be possible. And the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and he's the leader of the foreign policy, and that is what is being done actively, and the results of his work will be able to assess in the middle of September. This period was not very simple, and this not simple for Ukrainian diplomacy, but I can carefully say that it gives the first results. And in the end, I would like to say that it is important to understand one more thing. All the time the questions are asked whether Ukraine will refuse from ratification of association agreement. Despite very difficult discussion, I can confirm the clear position of the President of Ukraine that he stated in Minsk that he will take he will submit for ratification the association agreement in September, and this will not be delayed. All participants of that multi-sided format, even those who did not like the news, but by the evening they found common understanding that that is a clear and unchangeable position of Ukrainian president. So we need to look for the ways of how to settle the problem by the end of September, but not try to postpone this agreement, to delay it, which the agreement which is a clear vision of the president on how to modernize the country. So again, I stress, when you inform, there's no position there's no change of the position of the president after Minsk. Thank you. I'm ready to answer your questions. Could you in more detail tell us about the roadmap, who's developing it, and what specifically it will have? Will it be a new document, or is it based on the initiatives of the president? First of all, I call it a roadmap, There's no name like that confirmed yet, but the basis in this vision is the plan of Poroshenko. That's obvious. Now we have the proposals which could be implemented via the work of the contact group. We have advice from partners, and that roadmap is being developed in the negotiations via direct negotiations, via telephone format. That's not one document which is being discussed. That's the process which will give us the chance in a brief period of time to have common understanding of certain issues. You've heard about borders, about hostages, about bilateral ceasefire, about monitoring and verification of the border by OSCE, the issues related to internal domestic decisions on decentralization, the rights of the citizens, looking for real representation, legitimate representation, that people in Donbass would trust, the issues of infrastructural problems. All the sides emphasize that, first of all, we need to think not about some geopolitical ambitions, but about environmental threats. You know that in Donbass, not everything is so simple, because the electricity is cut off, the underground waters go up, and that's a big threat. We are on the eve of winter, and there might be the problems very serious if we do not resolve them before winter. And that is what is stressed in this roadmap that we are talking about. If there is a political will, if we get to common understanding, then all the issues technical, they might be more understandable, more transparent. If we are talking about humanitarian aid, that is to be transferred from threats to constructive actions. And I believe that despite the fact that we have not reached the final decision, but at least there is a feeling that all the sides reached certain limit beyond which we need to look for solutions. No one needs escalation. There's understanding that peace is needed, and the president of Ukraine was going with this issue of peace. We don't have the final result, but we have the vision that there's no alternative to such development, neither in Ukraine nor in the center of Europe. I have a question. There are talks that as if Ukrainian border guards will have some negotiations, some exercise together with Russian. What can we talk with Russian border guards about if 100 kilometers of our border are not controlled? Thank you. For the resumption of control, that is not to be negotiated. We are saying that we need to resume the control of the border. I will remind you, before this situation, when the terrorists and the mercenaries started acting here, we had the situation when the border was controlled from both sides. More than that, Ukraine, in the process of fixing this position on control of arriving the humanitarian convoy, managed to get the decision that there will be Ukrainian border guards on the points of passage of the convoy. But that does not resolve the whole issue. A big section of the border is not controlled, but these are the steps which will allow to do that. We need to ensure not just passing via cross points. We need to ensure control along the border. The Ukrainian-Russian border, the demarcation has not been completed. So attracting financial support and European projects for establishing Ukrainian-Russian border, also the border between Ukraine and Moldova, all that shows that now we can plan this work, because in any case the situation which we've been having shows that the border between Ukraine and Russia is to be protected from illegal crossing. It has to be restored, controlled. Without that, we will not be able to implement our vision of interaction in the wide sense of this word. So we are in the beginning of this way. The second issue is the permanent contact and the interaction between the general staffs. You understand what it means. There's a serious issue of the attacks which continued all the time, attacks on Ukrainian territory. So today, the Russian side does not recognize that that's their equipment, their people officially. The issue is very important to restore control, monitoring, clear understanding of the positions. And there is a certain political will to start the process. I believe that's positive. Another thing is we will see how serious it is. The nearest days will show whether that's sincere position or these are just words which are not supported by actions. One more question. May we ask one from ourselves? Talking about feelings, when there are negotiations vis-a-vis, can look into each other's eyes. Has the president of Ukraine seen any position of peace and dignity in the eyes of Putin? I can tell you one thing. They were. This was a working working discussion. It wasn't general. It was very specific and specific issues. It wasn't just complicated. It was super complicated. But the fact that we have some formats is better. When they start talking, when the diplomats or presidents start talking, then we have hopes that the cannons will stop shelling. If not, then we will not find solution. In principle, I believe it's not important what's in the eyes. You've seen what's in the eyes. You've seen it on photographs. But it's important that in the hand that someone holds, that there's nothing heavy in this hand, that the hand is open, that there are some decisions. It's obvious that many want to save their faces. Someone went too far. And if we manage in different formats to find political solution, to have political will, then it will be important not what is in the eyes of the leaders of the state, but it's important not to have tears in the eyes of mothers who get coffins from Ukraine. They get coffins both in Ukraine and in Russia. And in Russia, they don't want to get more and more of their soldiers who were killed. And that's the issue which went beyond Donbass. I don't know what they were talking about, but the issue of people, the issue of their social issues, issue of survival, had to be the key issue in their discussion. The leaders of the states are responsible for the countries, for the nations. That is in our president. His key interest is peace and life of the citizens. Could you please say, on the 4th of September, it's planned to have a visit to NATO summit. What are the expectations from this summit? Today, the government has approved the program Ukraine-NATO. What's in this document? Approval of the program Ukraine-NATO, which was delayed. That's a traditional program which was adopted every year, but there was a task of the president to speed up the preparation of Ukraine to this important event. So now, the president delegated to prepare participation of Ukraine in this summit, to get prepared for to this summit. Talking about the assistance to the soldiers from NATO, to those soldiers who suffered, who have wounds which require very serious medical treatment outside of Ukraine, abroad. And NATO is ready to help financially, to manufacture artificial limbs for our soldiers. But the main issue is how to build up the system of security in this part of the world, in Europe. What is the role of our partnership, Ukraine, NATO, in this development of a new system? How will we cooperate in a wider format in Afghanistan? The peacekeeping mission of Ukraine, Ukraine plays an important role here. And the key issue is deepening interrelations between Ukraine and NATO. There were issues discussed during the visit of General Secretary of NATO Rasmussen to Kiev. There were some meetings with the participation of the President as well, and on the eve of the summit, if there is a decision of the President, I believe there will be another serious event to get prepared to supporting the position of Ukraine. We expect that this will be a very serious event, and we are working in all directions on wide range of issues on cooperation between Ukraine and NATO. If you look at the program, there is a wide range of interaction. The Ukraine believes that NATO is the most powerful system, organization of the collective defense and security system. And the result of that summit can give us a new impetus and could strengthen our potential in the defense of Ukraine. But let's follow the result. Russia will not be present there. It's obvious that this will be the dialogue with our Western partners, and it will be about very specific security issues. Could you please tell what if looking for diplomatic ways of resolving the problem, trying to save somebody's face, this may influence the ATO? We see that yesterday's meeting in Minsk did not influence the actions of Russian side. The shellings continue. And yesterday's meeting did not stop the counterposition. I emphasize that ATO is our sovereign right to defend the country, and if there are attacks from terrorists, from mercenaries, our army has to protect people, to defend. And the diplomacy will help us achieve the decision on bilateral ceasefire, but we need to work a lot on that. But now our heroes are helping the country, are helping the diplomats to achieve success in moving towards peace. Unfortunately, this is not done within one day, but we look carefully but very optimistic into the future. Thank you.